Hey guys, Tarke here, and today we're doing another Patreon build review, this time for a Herald of Purity Juggernaut. We've looked at a couple of Herald of Agony jugs recently, so we'll see how similar or dissimilar these end up in principle. So let's read some of these notes here. I just started a hardcore character and was going for Herald of Purity minion damage. I've not had any problems so far since but I am very inexperienced with hardcore. Could use some general hardcore advice on how to take my character to endgame. But my damage will be lacking for some reason that I cannot yet explain. Right. Just a quick update. I've leveled to almost 92, and about 1 hour ago killed Cirrus on Awakener 5. Doing great, but would still like some advice for future endeavors in hard. Cool. So, hopefully his character's still alive since we last spoke in the middle of last week. Before we get into looking at the tree, so Herald of Purity build, he's gone Jug. We'll glance through the skills, we'll glance through the items, and then we'll see what we can kind of come up with. So he's got a Ray Spectre set up. I'm guessing it's just going to be some kind of utility Spectre. He said Meat Shield, Blood Magic, probably Frenzy Apes or something. Don't know. Carrying Golem, Holy Relic, Meat Shield, Feeding Frenzy, so he's getting some buffs there. He's got a Blade Storm, Culling Strike, Fortify, Maim. Interesting choice of using Blade Storm for that, but I'm guessing the thought process is you just, like, tag them with the Blade Storm to proc your Fortify, and then it leaves, like, a Tornado that will cull for you. And reapply Maim. Guess that kind of makes sense. Kind of quirky. Again, this isn't a build I play very often. If that's, like, a very vanilla thing to do, cool, I guess. If that's a unique thing to do, kind of cool, I guess. And also a good way of proccing Herald of Purity because it hits out often. Makes sense. Molten Shell cost and damage taken. Dash, Second Wind. He's got an aspect of the Spider. Not entirely sure what's going on with his mana reservation. Like, why it says that his setup is scuffed. I directly just imported his character as is. So, I'm guessing his character works, but I don't know that. See, he's got a... Might be something he's got in his sword that is increasing the mana reservation. What's he got on Weapon 1? No, none of that should mess with that. Okay, so he's got Aspect of the Spider Sword with just some attack speed. Some fizz damage. I mean, it's not really doing anything. I'm assuming you just want to run a True Iron Point. What is True Iron Point? The +3 dagger. I'm guessing something Iron Point. It's got a Magna Eclipse for. What's he got? The Magna Eclipse. Or what's he got in his shield? Cold Iron Point. That's the one. Sorry. Plus levels on the Spectre, that's not really giving much, it's just utility, so I'd be tempted to just go probably double Cold Iron Point or a more defensive shield. See, he's got a +1 minion helm, which is where he's got his utility, Carrying Golem, and Relic. It's got just a chest, nothing special really, it's just a 6-link. Was it a 6-link? Yeah, it's just a 6-link chest if you just bought that for cheap, or did the div card set for it. Okay-ish gloves. They've got life, they've got a little bit of res, they've got a good chunk of strength on there, which is more life. Pretty good boots, life, solid res, movement speed, chance to dodge. Yeah, pretty good. Life, a little bit of res, nothing like great. Life, a little bit of dex, which he needs a little bit of dex. Nothing else special otherwise though. Life, tiny bit of. Okay, so it's nothing that. Yeah, nothing else special. Belt's pretty good. Life, good resists. And then he's got an Onslaught Jewel, which I guess might proc every now and again from his Cull setup. He's got a Granite of Grounding, Silver of Dowsing. I wouldn't really use the Silver Flask on this kind of a build. I'd probably drop that. Probably go for a more defensive flask. Quicksilver of Warding, Staunching. He's got double Staunching. I would drop the double Staunching and then get Quicksilver of Adrenaline, but that's just me. Having to run an enduring hallowed flask, I don't really like this vibe of, but I guess if he's having to spam attack and he hasn't got any leech, guess why he's doing that. He's using... I'm gonna have to look into how some people actually build these. But he's using an actual weapon with some fizz damage crafted on it, so I imagine he's probably got enough damage that he should be fine with just mana leech. But if he has to use that, he has to use that, I guess. But I would suggest maybe dropping that and just going for a mana leech setup. He's got Lone Messenger, so he can't run auras, but his head pre does not more damage. And then we can look into these individually. So he's got increased damage affected by Herald, increases maximum impurities, damage by Herald, increased maximum impurities, chance to impale. So, like, fairly standard, fairly standard. Does he need that node? No, so you can drop that. You probably need that earlier. I would probably go through the minion attack seed rather than the minion damage, just because that will make the AI feel better. Purities can die, so you need to play around that. I would want to take this full cluster, because Chaos Stress is good. Is it worth rooting through the... You could swap these 2 points around. Thank you very much. Get a little bit more attack seed. I'd probably rather do that. And then you could drop Sacrifice, but you could keep it if you wanted to keep it. I'd root that way. Right. Generally, I don't root through the top. Usually I root either through here for the armor and the res, or I'll like root around this way. 1, 2, 3. Guess he's scaling his own damage. The attack speed's fine. You can change your rooting slightly to come across this way. Get the extra jewel. The core rooting isn't that... Like, it's kind of fine going this way, to be honest. You anointed Sanctuary. Why did you anoint Sanctuary? Did you need the res? No. So you just did it just because it's a little cheap bit of block? Okay, so that's not something. Do you need this dex here? You do need some dex somewhere. Is there a better way of you getting that dex? Let's have a quick look-see how other people are rooting this. And what weapons and stuff they're using, because this isn't a build I've really played. I've never played Pure Herald of Purity. Let's look for hardcore in particular, because the guy's playing hardcore and wanted some tips for hardcore survivability. Main thing I want to say off the bat is fitting in like a Divine Flash or something. 1% of Herald of Purity, boys. Okay. See how these guys are doing. So it's all fairly standard. Most of them are going this way. Some do come across into Duelist, get that extra thing, as I mentioned there. Right, okay. Some are coming down this way, and that's where they're shoving a Timeless Jewel. Nearly always Divine Flash, I'm going to assume. Whoops. Nearly always Divine Flash, I'm going to assume. Let's have a look at some of their links. Yes, I can use middle click. I prefer to do it this way. Don't know why, it's just an old habit. So he's got a cooldown point on. This lad doesn't take this top section at all. Instead, he comes across into Duelist for a bit more survivability, but he does miss out on some damage there. He's doing Cyclone Fortify. This is much more common, using something like Cyclone than using Bladestorm. I would probably recommend using Cyclone instead, because you can do life gain on hit. And if you don't want to use a cooldown point, you could instead use a life gain on hit Claw, which is very common, and you can get life and mana gain that way. And that way you don't need to worry about having to run a Hybrid Flask, because you'll get your mana sustain through that. Again, cooldown point. This guy skips those damage nodes, skips that and that, instead comes across into Duelist. Cold on point. Noticing a bit of a theme here. If you do go for the Divine Flesh route, coming along this way, Saffles is a very good pick. I always forget this myself, but Saffles is +4 to all max res, not elemental. People often forget this does increase your maximum chaos res. So it's a very nice way of capping out your chaos res easily without having to worry too much about using cluster jewels to bolster your stuff up. So yeah, very, very much worth considering there. This guy also uses a bit of Herald of Agony, which is kind of interesting. Obviously, you can't do that because you're using the Lone Messenger jewel. But kind of cool to see him doing a little bit of both. Again, Cold Iron Point. This guy's also using a Jeffrey's Legacy, so he's getting some big Holy Relic action at the same time. Also using a Saffles. Again, also going into Duelist. He's got a 4-link Holy Relic, minion damage control, structure, and Feeding Frenzy, so his Holy Relic will probably do a decent amount of damage. I think Octavian played this build, actually, using Herald of Purities and Relics a couple of leagues back. Holy Relics apparently have pretty decent clear. Incandescent Heart, Divine Flash, very powerful. Obviously, if you can get Circle of Guilt, they're quite expensive on hardcore. If you can get them, it's going to be a big boon to your damage. Again, go the Divine Flash route. Hold on points, up his frames, get some combs, extra endurance charges. Noticing a pretty reoccurring theme. And then this is you. This is you right here. Coming Calamity, Saffles, Cold Iron, so I guess he's using both. Herald of Purity and Herald of Agony, yes. Okay. So... seems pretty clear that you don't really need these points here. So we're going to cut this off. Because, like, it gives you some attack speed, which you don't really need. Sure, getting some minion regen's kind of nice, but it's not that big of a deal. So if you were to drop those points, you could then come across, slap this in, then gives you access to a potential cluster jewel there. You're not using any 2-point jewels, which obviously you want to use 2-point jewels. 2-point jewels are good. You don't need that point. You can always just get a little bit of dex on gear. Oh. So that'd be a 95 tree, you're 92. That's without investing into 2-point jewels. Obviously, if you take this one, that'd be another bit of dex there. So if you were to come along this way, you get 20 dex. You'd lose 30 dex there, but you know, it's the thing. Would also get an extra endurance. To be honest, even if you just dropped these points and instead picked up the 2-point jewels that you're missing, that would be an improvement. And you'd still have 3 points left to play with, which you could, in theory, then spend on dex nodes if you're missing dex nodes. Or what you could also consider doing, drop these 3 points here, instead route through some armor. Yes, this is a bunch of extra points, but this gives you a bunch of resist. This could then potentially free up a bunch of your gearing to then let you chase bigger life rolls, because your life rolls were like, all your life rolls were decent, but they weren't like insanely good. And then chase stuff like dexterity, maybe some int if you needed some int, and you could free up your gear requirements a little bit that way. But off the bat, those would be like the core changes I would make. It's just dropping these sections instead, chasing down some jewels. I don't think you really need to go for this, but it is damage. I would definitely go Cold Iron points. It's going to be a big DPS increase, even if you end up dropping the Aspect of the Spider, which then also frees up some mana reservation stuff. I would be if you want to go raw deeps, like just damage it up, you could go dual Cold Iron points. You will lose some survivability from that, but potentially with all this damage that you've now acquired from going double Cold Irons, you could then drop these points, and you still have more damage if you took this entire cluster. And then with the extra points you freed up, you could then come across, fill this in, maybe get another endurance charge. So you could sacrifice some defense, but then make it up through more points on the tree, extra endurance charges, you know, going about it that way. I would be very tempted to go the Combs route / Combs way, since your current rings aren't really giving you anything that special. Since you can't afford the Circle of Guilt, obviously if you can afford the Circle of Guilt, those are going to be your endgame picks. But assuming that you don't have them, Combs Way is pretty solid. Getting the extra endurance charges is very big. They also have to give you some life gain for each enemy hit by your attacks, which if you were to go Cyclone, give you a little bit of life gain there is pretty strong. So you can then combo that with the life gain you get from going Cyclone, Fortify, life gain on hit, Maim, or faster attacks if you don't want to use the Maim there. You get a chunk of life regen. I would be tempted. Yes, you'd lose life, but you'd gain the endurance charge. It's a pretty solid option, to be honest. I would consider it. And again, if you were getting really screwed over by resists, you could then change the route through this way to make up for the resist you're losing. Also, if you end up going Circle of Guilt and, you know, you're going crazy on uniques, going this way is a good option. Since, I mean, it's just a good option. Yeah. This isn't giving you anything. I'm guessing you just did this because it was cheap early anoint. Let's have a look, see at what these guys are mostly anointing. Let's have a look. So here we've got Crystal Skin. Something I was going to talk about in a little bit. I'm guessing most of them go the Crystal Skin route. Crystal Skin. Cleanse Thoughts. Indomitable Army. Doesn't anoint anything. Ravenous Horde. Back to you. And Crystal Skin. Right. So the main thing that I kind of wanted to get into was the whole Crystal Skin vibe. Why do people do the Crystal Skin vibe? So, what you can do, since again, this one isn't giving you much. It's giving you a little bit of int. Yes, you need a little bit of int. Give me some chaos, which is always nice. It's giving me a little bit of life. But it's nothing that great. So this one you could drop out. You could even drop this one out for a max Chaos Res one and go Chaos Res cap, shove in a Divine Flesh, shove it in down here. Or you can anoint Crystal Skin, which gives you 50% chance to avoid elemental ailments. You could get a 30% avoid ailment small jewel with 3% dodge, 3% spell dodge, which could give you 45%. And then, wait, no, 35 plus 15 is 50, quick maths Tarke, which would leave you with 50% you need to get remaining. There are two places you can get that. You can craft it 25% on helmet and gloves. You could craft helmet and gloves. You'd then have 100% chance to avoid elemental ailments, which would make you completely immune to freeze, shock, ignite, and then the ones that people keep forgetting about, sap, brittle, scorched, which if you do delirium is very important because those are very, very scary. So you could go like crazy immunity that way. That would then free up a bunch of your flasks. So then you could, instead of doing a granite of grounding, you could do like a granite of iron skin, which would then let you put out much bigger Vol Molten shells, and that would then make you much, much tankier. I also wanted to change that up in here because you're not actually going down the whole big Molten Shell route. You're actually doing Molten Shell cost and damage taken. If you do Vol Molten Shell, increased duration, linked with your dash and your second wind, the second wind reduces the cooldown of the Molten Shell synergy. So you manually Molten Shell. So you just throw out the pack, you just press it. Just get into the habit of like, get to a pack, I press it, I get this big absorb shield. You've got loads of armor potential because you're a Juggernaut. You've got the potential to root through so much armor if you were to root through stuff like this. You can get so much armor on a Jug. It's like ridiculous. Especially if you then start using big shields as well, right? Again, this was like full Dipper route, but you could, you know, could go full Dipper, you can use a shield. But anyway, my point being, you can get access to a lot of armor. You really want to make the most of that by doing like big Granite Flask Vol Molten Shell action. And then that big like Vol Molten Shell, that is your oh look, there's a Legion encounter, because Legion can be spooky, or there's a Delirium boss, or there's just anything that could be of danger to you, just press the button and you basically can't die for 30 seconds. It's really good. They're going to have to nerf it at some point. I would incorporate a bot molten shell to the build. Definitely. So let's make that change real quick. Let's get rid of that. Go dash, second wind. Revolve molten shell. And increased. Cool. Herald of Purity, Multi-Strike, Brutality, Deathmark, Impale, Ruthless. What links do these guys use? Herald of Purity, Brutality, Melee Fizz, Feeding Frenzy, Impale, Minion Damage. That seems suboptimal. Herald of Purity, Minion Damage, Impale, Multi-Strike, Deathmark, Brutality. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, that seems more like it. Okay, I think that's fine. Desecrate, cast so much taken Flesh Offering. That's just automated. Sure, you can actually level up this Flesh Offering a bit more. I think it's like level 6 or something. Level 8. That just gives you like an extra 3% minion attack speed, worth doing. You can also level this up a little bit, so you might as well. So 7, cool. So you can have Desecrate, Cast Damage Taken, Flesh Offering. Cool. This Blade Storm setup, I would just use Cyclone. If you want to stick to the Blade Storm thing, fine, but I would swap that out. Also, since we're saying drop the aspect of the spider, you could run a War Banner, which will increase your damage, and it doesn't count as an aura, and it is cheaper than running a aspect of the spider, so I would use that. Assuming these are giving your minions Frenzy. If they're not, go for the Frenzy Apes. I would be tempted to go the Joffrey's Crown route and focus more in on the Holy Relics. I'd make the Holy Relics kind of do some damage for you. But if you don't want to, if it's too annoying, fair enough to you. Again, would swap this out for Cyclone. And I would run Life Gain on hit. And just get that nice survivability going. If you don't want to use the cooldown point, if you can't get hold of them for whatever reason, like say you can't get them on trade, or you're doing some SSF stuff, or you want a more League start friendly option, try and get a Gemini Claw at the very least, because that way you'll get the Mana Sustain. Try and get Mana Leech somewhere, so you don't need to run this Hallowed Hybrid Flask. You want to drop that out right away. Again, drop out the Silver Flask. I don't really like running Silver Flask on my build unless it's substantially increasing my damage. So an example where I would use the Silver Flask was if I was playing like a Totem build. Because then I'm benefiting from the movement speed, and my totems are getting access to Onslaught, and that's the only way they're going to realistically get it. So if I was like Ancestral Warchief totems, or Freeze Pulse totems, or totems basically, I would instead go for more defensive flasks. So you could go for a Source of Blind. Blind is very strong. You could go for a Stibnite or something. It's also got very good usage, so it's got high uptime. And you could go for like a Basalt. Pretty standard. So I'll swap those out. With these extra jewels we've added, you could be going for life. You could be going for missing stats, like dexterity, since you did some dexterity. You go for resistances to free up your gear slots, so that you go for more interesting slots. Chaos Res, then obviously you can get stuff like minion damage, mana leech. Basically, fill in the flex. Life is the core, then flex for anything else that you need. You can also just stack up. Minions scale incredibly well with Abyssal Jewels. So just like some flat life and then like minion fizz damage and all, minion attack speed, all that sort of stuff. But yeah, otherwise I'd say you were fairly spot on. Like there wasn't really that much wrong per se. If you didn't want to go crazy with the changes down here, keep this core routing as you had it. I wouldn't go for this routing. If you are going to go for this routing, then at least kind of make it worth your while by then maybe investing slightly more into the Holy Relics. I would try and replace this chest piece as soon as you can. Just going for a incursion chest with good flat life, percent life, then crafted percent life on top. So you can get like 15, 20-ish% life and then like 100 flat. Or going for a big crafted, maybe a pot levels chest. Or if you want to go down the Divine Flesh route, something like Incandescent Heart, just stack up all that elemental mitigation, maybe going for the Sapphire's Frame instead of the Magna Eclipse. Really, though, for a fresh hardcore start, you've done pretty well. There's nothing too insane I would really consider changing. I will probably leave some links to some of these to look into. None of them are really perfect. Like, they all do something I kind of disagree with. That's a very nice chess piece, obviously, with the, you know, 100 life plus 1. But I don't really like the Magna Eclipse route. Not entirely sold on some of the routing. For this guy, mostly on point. Not 100% on going for something like Lionized Remorse. Seems a bit kind of wasteful to me. Also, he was using a Brutal Force to convert Strength to Int, which, I mean, it's giving him the Corrupted Blood immunity, so fair enough, but it seems a bit unnecessary. This, I think I kind of like this one the most, if anything, just because it's got the Joffreys, the tree's pretty solid. He's using these points and these points to maintain his relic staying alive, the relic's healing. You know, it's kind of neat. It's like, it's a little bit quirky, but it's not too quirky. Like, it's kind of like, it's within reason. I kind of dig it. This guy I like a lot. He's gone for the Incandescent Heart, but then he hasn't anointed anything, and then he's using a claw, but not the right claw, because he's not using a Gemini claw. Also, if you are going to use a rare weapon, do trigger Socrates Spell when you use a skill like this guy has, because that way you can just automate your Desecrate Offering and a Curse, right? So that's something to look into. If you are going to stick to using a rare weapon, go for a trigger one. This guy was kind of cool, going for the Grip of the Council sub, going for the Double Combs Way, going the Cold Iron Point, which I agree with. Going for the Sapphiles, which I agree with. Going a little bit more this way. You've got a lot of options. You've got a lot of options, which is interesting. It's interesting. Also, one thing which is kind of cool. So this guy takes Runebinder. So I'm guessing so he doesn't do any damage, so that he can run Reflect or something. That might be something I'm missing, or it might be something to do with the Golden Rule. But yeah, interesting. Overall, though, I'd say pretty spot on. Look into going for Combs Ways. Definitely invest in some Cold Iron Points. If you want to go full Glass Cannon, go double Cold Iron Point. Go full Deeps. Again, as we mentioned, you can drop like all the damage you had on the tree. Go crazy on life investment, and that way you'll make up for the lost defense of going for a shield. But overall, you did pretty well considering. I'm not going to go crazy just filling in little minor details. Would consider looking into something like Herald of Agony instead of Herald of Purity, since you haven't got the Circles of Guilt yet. Obviously, the Circles of Guilt are going to be your end game. But yeah. Best of luck in hardcore. If you're not going to go for Crystal Skin, would still drop Sanctuary, by the way. Anyway, I'm Tarke. Have a good day. Bye-bye.